Before I started my first dev job, I had an idea of what it might be like based on watching people's experiences on YouTube or just, my imagination, I guess. But I think I only realized the reality of the job once I had started. So I'm gonna highlight in this video what basically are your expectations versus what it actually is once you start working. The first thing would be that you're not really supposed to know very much. And although I kind of felt like I didn't put pressure on myself because I knew they knew I was new. They really kind of underestimate your ability, so then they can be surprised if you actually can do anything. If you grasp something or you can bring some of your previous knowledge or experience into the first job that you have, then they can kind of be impressed by it and gauge what level you're at. And also you'll find that Googling, and more so AI these days, ChatGPT, is basically half your job. So it's never expected of you to just sit and write something from scratch without Googling or researching or, asking questions, because that's just completely unrealistic and no one can write code from scratch unless they are crazy. Another thing that I noticed is that your attitude to your job is more important than how much you can actually code. I think maybe beforehand you expect to just kind of be able to code, and that's really impressive, which it can be, but the more impressive thing is being able to communicate with your team and also kind of ask the right questions that might help whatever project you're working on. And being a good dev doesn't just mean being able to code. It definitely means being able to communicate, having the right attitude, basically soft skills. And I think before going into your job, you just don't really think about that much. And that's probably because when you're trying to get a job, you're just doing the technical skills and working on them. Another thing that you might have not realized is that sometimes you just can't work something out and your brain just doesn't work and you just get very mentally tired, especially when you're trying to fix something and it has a lot of moving parts to it and you're just trying to kind of figure it out, and it gets tiring. And that also includes having a lot of meetings. My sprint planning week has a lot of meetings and that can get tiring. Even if you're just listening and sitting there, it can just be quite exhausting to stay focused and try and contribute and take in what's going on. Sometimes I struggle when it's like a meeting that's going past an hour. I just kind of zone out. I just find it difficult to keep that same level of attention all the way through, and especially if it's someone else's work that isn't directly related to me, I just kind of... And a big thing that I realized when I started to work is that work is not like a tutorial on YouTube or a course or a boot camp. You very rarely get a code base that is nicely packaged and simple to work on. Normally, they're just some ancient relic that has been in the company for years, being built on and changed, and people have left messy code in there. People have left useless code commented out there, hard-coded things. It's all pretty messy. And there's probably no documentation either. So you're not starting something from scratch, which would be the easier thing to do because you understand it from the beginning. You're being put into something that's been around for a while and it gets quite complex, and then, it's a whole job in itself understanding what you're even getting into. I mean, being able to read someone else's code in a new code base that you've never looked at before is quite an achievement in itself. You just realize that is just being a developer is part of the job. And lastly, another thing that you don't realize going into the job is not only is there a gap in experience, but there's a gap in dev culture. You may find that in your company that you join, there'll be more experienced developers that have very strong feelings on a certain framework, certain language, certain library, and it might make you feel like you're just not a proper developer. And I definitely feel that disconnect with the dev culture because I've only been a developer for a year in a company, and I just think it's fine to focus on learning things, but that culture gap definitely exists, and you'll probably see it when you start working. If you've just started your first developer job and you've noticed these things or any other things, let me know in the comments what your experience has been. And don't forget to check out the Software Development for Beginners series. I have really quick explainers on there for different concepts that you'll come across in your first year of working, so go check that out. But other than that, I'll see you next time.